Hello, everyone. Devani here in Toronto, Ontario, and I'm so excited to welcome you to episode 2 of Magnificent Men's Monday. I am super excited to be able to interview a good friend of mine, James Coma. And without further ado, let me bring in James to the interview.
Hey,
James,
Bahani.
hi, how are you? Thank you so much for doing this interview. I'll let my viewers know a little bit about you and then let you tell us the rest. So, James Coma is a international actor, producer, writer, and he's also an entrepreneur and investor. He has a quite successful career in especially working in Europe, and I'm very eager to learn more about what James does. So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, James, and we will get right into our topic of today, which is the stories that make us. So you can maybe lead into that a little bit after letting us know who you are.
Yeah, absolutely. So, as you said, I'm an actor, writer, producer, entrepreneur. I do a lot of stuff in the entertainment industry. And this has always been something that I knew I wanted to do. So now I just get to do it. And I'm very excited about that. I think, well, as the title of this episode, the stories that make us, I think that life is just made up of stories, and that. It all comes back to when I was a kid and I was watching movies and all that stuff. I got really inspired, and from a very young age, I knew I wanted to do something like that. So now I get to do it, and I'm very, very excited about that. But I'm also doing a podcast right now. It's not live yet, but I'm working on that. And we're gonna have many other actors, artists, models, musicians, creators from all walks of life. I'm gonna interview them, and I also want to give them a platform to promote themselves. And so basically, that's a little bit of what I'm up to these days. And as you said, I'm also an entrepreneur, so trying to juggle a lot of things at once. But I'm loving every single minute of it.
Oh, that's amazing. It's so wonderful that you're doing what you're passionate about, and we can tell that just just by the way you speak about all that you do. And I guess one of my questions, and it's the one I usually do with my Wonderful Women's Wednesday series, is that work-life balance, kind of
Mhm.
how, or like, or juggling all the jobs that you have, let's say. So everything that you do, how do you find the time to kind of do everything? Is it just because of the passion that you seem to just have that extra energy?
Yeah.
Or is it something you've kind of tried to figure out, like, this amount of time for this and that, but still kind of have time for yourself?
I've always been very organized. So that's kind of like, a pro on my side. But
Hmm.
I don't think that I've ever really put a lot of thought into work-life balance. I
Mm.
have this motto, which is, have a life or build a life that you don't want to retire from. And so it's
Ah,
like, that's where I'm at. I want a life where I'm not tired of working, where I look forward to working. And
okay.
I've always been very hardworking,
Hmm.
from a young age, started getting gigs and all that stuff, whether it was acting or non-acting,
Right.
and my father was a factory worker, so I definitely don't come from money.
Hmm.
But to me, it was always like, my dad was never around and he never made a lot of money, right?
Mm.
But to me, I was like, what if I could be around, and have a life that I look forward to living? What if I could travel, but at the same time, make a lot of money doing that? And
Mm.
so, really, I don't really put a lot of thought into work life balance. It's like, I just want to do what I love. And if I have to do it for 24 hours straight, I'll do it, And it just kind of
Right.
finding that way, looking forward to what you do. And, just don't ever getting tired of doing that, and not wanting to retire.
Right.
That's kind of the key.
Mm. Absolutely. No, it's true. Yeah. I mean, with my corporate job, that's one thing I was like, I want to, get out of that so I don't have the same excitement and passion I have for like doing these interviews or getting my online businesses going. So I can totally understand that. So yeah, the topic of today is the stories that make us. So I mean, everyone has a starting point when you started your businesses. So I don't want to call it the challenge, but what was the changes you found in yourself? Let's say in your starting stages of your business and where you are now. You just kind of tell us a little bit about that journey, or is there a little story behind that?
Yeah. So actually, that story, it all began when I was very young, probably 18 to 20 years of age.
Okay.
That was when I kind of made the decision of, getting serious about it.
Okay.
Um, but since I was a kid, it was not just acting; it was just the whole vision that I had for my life. It never, kind of accounted for a corporate job or
Okay.
traditional way of living life. So I always knew that I wanted to be self-employed, or at least have some job where I had a little bit of freedom, whether it
Mhm.
was being an independent sales agent or whatever, and of course acting.
Mhm.
And so um, I struggled a little bit
Okay.
when I was 16, all the way up until my 20s. I got some gigs. I
Okay.
was doing a lot of work in Europe as an actor, and I was signing up with agencies and a lot of stuff because I was
Mhm.
living in Europe. And
Okay.
I got to a point where it just all felt like so tiring. I lost that loving feeling. I just
Mhm.
lost the passion and the drive, and I was like, this ain't doing it for me anymore. What's
Okay.
going on here? And that's when I kind of took a break. And there's this story that really inspired me, which is how Harrison Ford, um,
Okay.
he always talks about. That's actually a story that inspired me.
Okay.
But he's often talked about when he moved to LA. He said
Mhm.
he was in a metaphorical bus with a bunch of other actors, and they were all trying to make it, right?
Mm.
So when he arrived, everybody was motivated and driven until years went by, and people started to drop off or move back home and whatever. And
Mhm.
he said, I knew that if I wanted to make it in the long term, in the long run,
Mhm.
that I had to find a way to sustain myself, and do something
Mhm.
that I loved besides acting
Ah,
until
okay.
my big break came, right? And so that's when he got into carpentry, and he was really good at it,
Hmm.
and he had his carpentry business, and he was doing woodworking and fixing stuff for the stars in Hollywood and all that stuff,
Mhm.
until eventually, he got his role. I believe it was Star Wars or something like that, but one of those
Okay.
early roles, and then his career took off after that, right? And so I was like,
Mhm.
okay, so what is one thing that I'm passionate about that I can start doing besides acting that's going to make me a lot of money, and where I can, really build that life that I look forward to?
Mhm.
And that was business.
Oh, okay.
And so I knew that from where I was back then, my early 20s, to where I
Mhm.
wanted to be, there was a lot of work to be done.
Mhm.
I had to change my mindset. I had to change the way I thought, the way I believed, the way everything about me, the way I spoke, everything was.
Mm.
I had to change all of that, and it was kind of a challenge because I was like, I didn't know where to start.
Mm.
Um, but then I got into self improvement, self development. I was already into that stuff, but not really serious about it. I thought it was just a lot of woo woo until I really
Mm.
got I really got into it, and I was like, I really want to know myself. I really want to know not who I am, but who I can be.
Oh.
And from that point forward, I feel like there was a before and after. The person that
Mm.
I am today has nothing to do with the person I was 4 or 5 years ago. And
Wow.
when I look in the mirror, I think like I'm proud of the changes that I've made.
Mhm.
And if you ask me the secret of how I did it, honestly, it was just that turning point of, from now on I'm going to be this person, and that's it.
Mm.
Then you just go and do the work. But
Right.
that was kind of the turning point where I said, okay, I'm going to build a business and I want to do both. And actually, it's interesting because the fact that I got into business, and I have all these entrepreneurial projects going on, that's also helped me as an actor, because you see the whole business in a different way. You realize that it's a career, it's a business,
Mm.
and you can also have fun with it, and you have to keep that passion for it. But at the end of
Mhm.
the day, just something that you do for a living, just like, if you were in finance or whatever,
Right. Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, easier said than done, like saying just, you have to get to it and do it, but how do you stay motivated with that? So, I mean, we hear it everywhere. It's online. It's like, yeah, just imagine it. I mean, I do believe that because I do that as well. So you kind of imagine yourself already having achieved it. But if someone's having difficulty trying to do that, what any kind of advice or tips or tricks that they can try to just sort of, I guess I don't know if it's I mean, you're passionate about something, but maybe you're just kind of self-doubting yourself, like you're passionate about what you want to do, but to convince yourself, because some people just feel that they're not worthy of it or they can't do it, but they're still passionate about it. So if
Yeah.
you had someone like that, what would you kind of advise them?
um well, that's a tough situation to be in, and I've been there
Mm,
myself.
mm,
And to this day, sometimes I still struggle with that. But the
mm,
thing is, you got to keep going no matter what. It's like
mm,
if we're in the middle of a battlefield and somebody was shooting at you, would you stop shooting back just because, I don't know, you're tired, just because you can't see the end of it? It's like, when you get to that, very extreme thinking. If I were in that extreme situation, it's like it becomes obvious. Of course, you would continue shooting and fighting until the war was over or whatever, right? So
mm,
sometimes just because you can't see the end, just because you can't see, the goal or whatever it is, it doesn't mean it's not there. And I guess
mm,
one thing that's helped me a lot is faith. you know
mm,
I'm a
true.
Christian, but I also believe in energies, and that
Mm,
I know that there's a higher force that we cannot see, but is at play here. And so there's
right.
moments where you just have to surrender and say, okay, just whatever, do whatever I need to do, I'll do it, but just, you lead
Yeah.
me. And
Right.
he
So
does.
yeah.
God leads you, and God is talking all the time. And so sometimes when I find myself in a situation like that where I feel like I'm just running around like a dog without a head. And I'm doing a lot of stuff, but I don't really know what I'm doing or why I'm doing it. What I try to do is I just try to stop and take a few days off if I have to. Just
Mhm.
I go to church, or I go to nature and meditate and just do nothing. Sometimes you have to just do nothing, and then the answers will come. Because if it's like, if you're trying to write a song but you're constantly listening to other people's music, it's like, how can you possibly create something if there's always that noise in the background, right?
Right.
So sometimes you have to calm that and just say, okay, fuck it,
Mhm.
and completely get away from it all and allow things to come to you. And I think that's also, part of why people, I think, get demotivated, is because
Mm,
they are stuck in this chase energy.
true.
Like, there's this goal that I have and I got to get to it and I got to run towards it. Not
Yep.
really. Yes, there's a part where you have to walk towards it and you have to go after it, but
Mhm.
there's also a part where you have to attract it to you. And that's where
Right.
where you have to work on your belief system, and you have to
True.
really do the work. And that's what I did. It's like,
Right.
yes, there were moments where I wanted to quit and say, fuck it. But if you're really passionate about it, whatever it is, whether it's business or acting or music, whatever it is, if you're really
Mhm.
passionate about it and you have a dream and you have this vision, you'll make it eventually. I know
True.
that I know people that have been in this industry for decades and
Mhm.
only now are finally beginning to get, the roles that they want to play and all that stuff. And it's like,
Mm. Wow.
because they didn't quit, you know.
Right.
And so the advice that I have is this: if you
Mhm.
quit, you'll never make it. So if it's important enough for you, you'll do the work.
Yeah, absolutely. No, great advice for sure. That's true, and about like God or the universe giving us signs, it's all there, but we just have to be open
Mhm.
to seeing it or understanding it. That's absolutely for sure. So those are like really really great tips.
You have to get used to being a vessel, you know.
Yes.
It's I think that when you stop making it about you, and
Mm.
you realize and you understand that there's something bigger than you,
Right.
that there's a reason why you're doing this,
Mm.
then it becomes so much easier to keep going. And I haven't always been a Christian, you know. I was a total disbeliever, you know,
Okay.
when I was a teenager, and up until that point, until I realized that, you know, it became so clear to me, almost like there was no way I could deny it. And
Mm.
I had experiences in my life that maybe I'll talk about them in another episode or whatever.
Right.
But I had experiences in my life where I had this feeling of, okay, there's no way I can explain this, but there's a God, you know. And when I
Mm.
started to understand what he was trying to tell me, you know, that's when I understood that it wasn't just about me making it as an actor. It wasn't just about me producing movies and making a lot of money. It
Mhm.
wasn't just about all of that stuff. It
Right.
was about the bigger picture, you know.
Mm.
And I started thinking about, okay, there might be somebody out there that I can help. There must be a reason why I gotta be an actor and have a platform when I could
R-
be making all this money through something else. And
Right.
I'm starting to realize that now in a more material way with my
Mm.
podcast. It's like all this,
Exactly. Yeah,
right?
I was
All
just
this,
going to lead into that. Absolutely, and that's what's great because
right?
you're opening up this platform for all artists, so
Yeah,
actors, musicians, like me, being a musician as well. So yeah, it's just amazing, and even coming back to God for you, it's like because everyone always says there's a purpose in life, or the
yeah,
universe or God has a purpose, but we don't know what it is. But as
right.
you're saying, I guess once you realize what it was and then you didn't put the focus all on you were able to like achieve it and just be motivated. So yeah, no, that's amazing. And the whole podcast, I'm super excited
Me too. Me
yeah, to hear the first episode and yeah, help promote it and be interviewed by you next time. So I'd love to be one of your podcast people. But yeah, no, that's amazing. Yeah, and we touched on so many things, and definitely, yeah, that would be another topic for another day. Even the other interview I did, the first episode with Kush, I think there
too.
was some life, experiences for him as well. So maybe I can do like a combined kind of just like share stories kind of a episode. We can maybe try something out like that. Um, yeah. So, and like, even your story about Harrison Ford, like we see these people, like these actors, and we just think, oh, they have the easy life, and like they're making tons of money and all this, but we always forget everyone starts somewhere, right?
Right.
And you start from the bottom and you kind of move your way up. So it
And
was really nice hearing that story.
and
Eh,
there's a thing about this, which is, you know, we often, the people that we look up to, we see them, you know, there's this quote that says, don't compare your chapter 1 to somebody else's chapter 50, you know. and
okay,
um,
that's a good
and
one.
that was also a big realization for me, because
Mm,
you know, all these people that you look up to, they're already, you know, established, and they've been doing what they're doing for decades. But
mm-hmm.
you should have seen them when they were your age, right? Maybe
Right.
they were in the same place. And so
True.
I think that also society has this kind of a notion that there's some kind of gap that they need to fill.
Mm,
And I had this notion too, you know, like, oh, but I'm over here. How am I supposed to go all the way over here, right?
mm-hmm.
And it's like, what filled that gap for me was God or the universe or whatever it is, but that sense of purpose, that it was something bigger than me, and that sometimes you don't need to have all the answers, you know.
Mm,
And so sometimes you don't necessarily have to know exactly what movie is the movie that's going to make you famous, or you know what people you want to work with. It's like, just if you know where you're going, you know,
mhm,
as I said, and you have this vision and you're clear on
mm,
what you want, then eventually everything will unfold to you, and you're gonna, you know, run into people that, I don't know. I remember one time when I first got into business, I was in Spain. I
mhm,
was in Barcelona, and I was taking a bus,
mhm,
and all of a sudden there's this family from California waiting for
mm,
the same bus, and I'm like, what are the odds that
mm,
now that I'm building a business, in the United States, all of a sudden I would run into a family from the United States in Barcelona, which is like, you don't expect that to happen, but it did. And we started talking and all that stuff. And it was like, I couldn't have figured that out by myself. There
Mm.
must be something, some kind of force, some energy, whatever
Mm.
it is you want to call it, whatever you believe in,
Right.
that makes those circumstances happen, right?
Right.
And you got to be open to it, because if you try to figure out every single step, you're not going to make it. And I found
Mm.
that to be true for myself, because when I tried to figure out each and every single step and put together a plan, and the more detailed I try to be, the
Mm.
more I realize that I'm trying to force things into
Ah,
being,
okay.
and then it doesn't happen, right? Whereas when I'm just open, and I say, I like, for example, I was like, at first it was just a thought, maybe I would like to make a podcast. I don't know. We could talk about this and that. And all of a
Mhm.
sudden I'm meeting people from Hollywood,
Mm.
California, and New York, and Ohio, and Germany, and they're all in this industry, and they're all, rising to the heights of their careers. And I'm like, every person that I've asked so far, they all want to be guests. So now I'm like,
Mm.
finally, I have on my guest list, and trying to schedule the interviews. But it's like, I couldn't have figured that out if I were, if I would have, just stayed there thinking, okay, so who do I know? Who can I meet? It's like,
Mm.
because then you're trying to force it. But if you
Right.
just open and say, okay, this is what I want to do, and for some reason I feel called to do this,
Right. The
things start to
universe
happen.
heard you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Amazing. Yeah. It's so wonderful to hear true stories like this. It's one thing when you read about it and they say, "Oh, the universe told me this and that," but when you talk to real people and hear their experiences, it's great.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so it's wonderful. You touched on a couple of stories. Is there any other kind of stories where you kind of we titled this the stories that make us? So you kind of
Yeah.
shared your Harrison Ford story. Is there any other story that was really, really powerful and motivational for you?
Well, there were many stories in my life. As I
Mm.
said, I believe that life is made up of stories,
Right.
and, you find that everybody has a story,
Hmm.
and there's stories within stories. And then, the
Hmm.
more you get into, getting to know somebody, you realize that, everything is interconnected. And so that's why I kind of wanted to, the title to be the stories that make us. But
Hmm.
the reason why is because I think that I've learned a lot from other people's stories, and
Oh,
I'm somebody that
mm,
I love to learn about others, learn about
mm,
other people's mistakes, failures, but also successes. And I think that life is all about that, finding the inspiration in the stories. And um, there's stories everywhere, and you just gotta be open. Again, just being open
mhm,
to that. And when you hear somebody's story, just kind of realizing what it is that you can learn from that. What can you take away from that story or from that person, right?
right.
And kind of make it your own. So, there's that story about, Harrison Ford, how it
Mhm,
inspired me. I was like, if he was a carpenter because he liked that, I like business, and I always
mhm,
felt called to business, and always had I was kind of a natural, in that. So
mhm.
I went that way. But there's many, many stories that in my life I just can't even, tell them all, but
That's why
like,
we'll have more. We'll definitely have more episodes. So
yeah,
we'll keep our viewers wanting to hear more. But I loved what you touched upon, the positive and the negative, because a lot of people always say, surround yourself with successful people,
yeah,
read successful stories. But at the same time, like we were saying before, everyone starts somewhere. Everyone probably has failed,
mm,
several times before they just haven't given up, like you said. So
mm.
it was very great that you touched upon that, and
And
also the fact of learning from the situation. And I agree with you, yeah, because you can see someone's situation and say, okay, you know what, this is what I can do to avoid that. And the way
yeah,
I always say it, we're going to make our own mistakes, so we can just at least learn from others, try not to make the
yeah,
same mistakes others have, or if we do our own, don't make the same mistake twice within ourselves, which is what my
And
dad used
there's
to always say. It'd
actually,
be like, if you're gonna make a mistake, make a different one. Don't do the same one. So,
yeah,
but yeah, no,
there's
those are
actually a
really,
story
yeah.
that I think there's a story that I think is worth mentioning about that,
Mhm.
which is this is kind of like a sad story, but there's a positive twist to it. So
Okay.
when I was young, I went, during that time where I was doing a lot of stuff in Europe, and I was quite successfully, I guess that's the word you would use.
Mhm.
But I wasn't really feeling the passion. I wasn't really
Mhm.
living up to my potential. I
Okay.
went down, and I took the wrong road,
Mm.
and I became an alcoholic when I was very young, and
Mm.
that's something that I've struggled with ever since, right?
Mm. Okay.
Um, but then during that time, I got to be in a play which was based on the TV show Friends, right?
Okay. Yeah.
And so that was very exciting, and it was like pretty good. It went viral on YouTube and all that stuff. But
Mm.
as I was preparing for that role, of course, I was watching Friends, and I had never seen Friends.
Mm.
And Matthew Perry got my attention. He was this
Okay.
very funny guy. He could make anything he said funny, and it was like
Mm.
the funniest guy on earth. And I would
Mm.
just laugh, all the time with his jokes and watching his interviews, and was like so natural at it, right?
Mhm.
And then as I started to kind of get to know him, I realized that this guy had some trouble too,
Mm.
and I really looked up to him, but it was inspiring,
Mm.
because he went down, that road just like I did,
Mm.
but he never really got out of it.
Okay.
So then he passed away, and it was tragic, and I actually cried about it because I was like, damn it, this is no way to go out. But
Mhm.
he had written his memoir, right, his
Mm.
book, and I read that book, and
Okay.
I saw myself in a lot of what he
Mm.
was talking about, and it was really a wake up call for me, because I was like, if I'm feeling the same way, if I don't do something about it, I might
Mm.
just end up like this guy, right? And I just loved the guy, and he was crazy funny, and but he was troubled,
Mhm.
and he had his inner fears, his demons, and I definitely recommend that. I definitely recommend his book, because you realize that here's this guy who's had anything and everything he ever wanted in his life.
Mhm.
He was like, he had more money than he would ever need in 2 or 3 lifetimes. He was
Mm.
making millions in residual income from what he did 20 or 30 years ago with friends, right?
Mm. Right.
He had no love. He felt lonely.
Oh.
um,
Mm.
he was always afraid of having those true connections with people. He
Mm.
was an addict, and he felt like he couldn't really grasp the idea of the place he had in this world,
Mm.
like the world would look at him and be like, oh my god, here's Matthew Perry, and he would look at himself and be like, oh well, here's Matthew Perry,
Right. Oh my
So
gosh.
that
Mm.
was really a wake-up call for me, because you also have to as I said, be able to learn from other people's mistakes,
Mm.
and that's what I did with that, is I took the positive lesson, which is, you still have time to change the course.
Right.
You
Absolutely.
can still you know do something better, than and end up in a better position, let's say, than he did. So
Right.
you know that's also, sometimes people inspire you because of the amazing things they did, and sometimes they inspire you because of what they went through, and it's just,
Mm.
again, that being open to, I could have
Yeah.
just read the book and gotten depressed, and oh my god, this guy who I really liked and who inspired me is just dead. And
Mm.
yeah, that's a way to look at it. It's sad, but and it's
Right.
tragic, but at the same time, there's a reason why he wrote that book right before he passed,
Mm.
so
So true. Yep.
because there's people out there who need to read this story, and I think that he's still helping people from the other side because of that book. So that's the
That's
story that inspired me, like in a big way too.
Oh, that's amazing. I think we'll kind of end off with this story. I think that's great for this interview, and definitely, I'm sure I'll call upon you again for another episode. But definitely in the link, I'll put the name of the book because I didn't even realize he had a book out. I may have like kind of read about it in passing, but I don't
Yeah,
even remember what the name was. But I would also love to maybe once I've read it is kind of do like a book review or do like an open reading,
yeah,
just like a
absolutely.
live reading or something.
That
Because
would
I
be
have a
cool.
Facebook group that I'm trying to do similar to what you're going to do with your podcast is kind of just an open place that people can, share what they do and kind of like free advertising type of thing. But it sounds like the way you said it is he wrote that book before it happened because obviously God and the universe knows they they know when your time is up, but he obviously
Yeah,
felt that even though he was going through this, or maybe it was a form of therapy for him to just be able to write it and kind of put it on paper for him.
yeah,
But yeah, no, I'm very, very curious to find out the title of the book and to actually read it and possibly do a review or just an open reading. And I would love to have you join in on that. And then we could just kind of have
absolutely.
like a conversation. And I think it's a great one. So it's even like maybe like book of the week or something, and then get, a couple of people to read it, or I can read a few. And you probably have some good passages or chapters that we can just kind
Yeah,
of touch on. But I love that.
that would
So
be
that,
so cool. I would love to do that.
yeah, so I think it's great because, like you said, it's a message we need to give others, and there are other people who around this world that are going through similar situations, and if they can take something positive out of someone's passing, and and not just and to take the book for its true value, that it's there
Yeah,
to help people, and then get and not say, oh well, you're going to have to go. It's basically saying that you don't need to take this road. You can take
yeah.
there's a better option kind of thing.
And I think it would be a tribute to him as well because
Hmm.
a lot of people they're like very, especially in Hollywood. When you're a guy like that,
Mm.
everybody wants like the big news, and
Mhm.
it's like the way he passed. I think he deserved better. So
Mm.
this would be my way of paying a tribute to this guy who
Yeah,
basically
absolutely.
made for the laughs and the
Yeah.
inspiration, and just he deserves better. So
Right.
I would love to do that in his
Yeah,
honor.
oh, amazing. I think that's great. So, yeah, so we'll end off things with this episode. So, thank you so much for your time, James. I'll put the name of the book in there and any links that you have. And then please definitely keep me posted. My viewers, and I guess your viewers, once we share this video, just keep us all posted as to when your podcasts are going to happen. Because
Absolutely.
I think we're all
You can
eagerly
you
awaiting.
can just subscribe to my YouTube channel if you want, and
Okay.
I'll share everything on there, and the podcast is gonna be there as
Okay.
well. So yeah, it's basically youtube.com/ at James Coma. So very simple,
Okay.
just my name. But we'll
Okay,
share
that's
everything,
perfect. Okay.
and I will also share some stuff on Instagram.
Okay.
So if you wanna stay in the loop, just follow me on
Connect
Instagram
you there,
and
follow you there. Awesome. Okay, I definitely will do that. I'll put it in the comments as well, just in case people didn't quite catch that. So, yes, thank you again so much for your time. It was a
thank
pleasure
you,
to
bro.
interview you, and looking forward to doing the book review and another session with you, an interview with you at a future date, especially maybe just before you launch your podcast or something. I would love
Absolutely.
to just kind of see where you are from now, like from today to that point, kind of all that it took to get there. So yeah, once again, thanks you so much for your time, and
Thank you.
until our next interview, I guess. All right,
Absolutely.
take care.
Thank you so much.
All
Bye
right,
bye.
thanks. Bye.